Welcome back to another episode of Drone Wars here on Squadding Quads. And the King of Quads episode today is going to be between two amazing drones. But who's going to take the crown? Is it going to be the DeepSpace Seeker35 or is it going to be the SpeedyBee Master 3X? Sit back, settle down, enjoy, and let's freaking go. Price versus performance is category number 1. And we're going to look first of all at the SpeedyBee Master 3X with an 04 Pro. And that comes in on Banggood because obviously we can't get that from SpeedyBee because they are anti-consumer. Anyway, at 348 English pounds, which, let me just work that out in dollars, 450 US dollars. Now what's interesting is £348, if we take off the cost of an 04 Pro, which is £210, that means that the drone is going to cost us 130 English pounds, which I think is actually a bit of a bargain for how much performance you get here. But it's price versus performance and not just price. So let's go and have a look at the DeepSpace Seeker35. And that comes in with, in fact, let me remove the GPS. Oh, I can't remove the GPS. Right, okay. So that comes in at $499. So around about $70 more expensive than the SpeedyBee. And on the face of it, you're thinking, well, the SpeedyBee it's a 4-inch versus a 3.5-inch. So price versus performance is going to be an easy win for the SpeedyBee. But it's not as simple as that because the SpeedyBee is 4 inches and it is 4S, whereas the DeepSpace Seeker35 is 3.5 inches, but it's a 6S. And this is where this really gets difficult, and I think this is going to be one of the hardest episodes I've recorded yet, because the SpeedyBee offers brilliant performance versus price, but then the DeepSpace Seeker offers brilliant performance, period, and you don't mind paying that extra. So who am I going to choose when it comes to price versus performance? The honest answer is, even now, after I've scripted it, I've sat down, I've thought about it, I've flown them, I still don't know. I genuinely don't know. So I'm going to give them both a point each. Now, you could argue, and I'm sure you guys will argue with me in the comments, and please do, that price versus performance, you're going to go with the SpeedyBee. It's almost as good as the DeepSpace, but you're only paying for 4S batteries, which again helps that price versus performance comparison. But the extra performance you get of the SpeedyBee almost takes you to a 5-inch level, whilst not having all the maintenance costs of a 5-inch, but you are then paying extra for the drone and for the lipos as well. So it is really, really difficult. Do you know what? I'm going to get off the fence and I'm going to give it to the SpeedyBee Master 3X. And that is, again, and I must stress this, like I do in a lot of these videos, we are working with paper thin margins. Whichever one of these you get, for whatever purpose, you will enjoy. We are only showing good drones on this series, unless I specifically tell you this is trash and we'll trash it together and we'll have a bit of fun. But these are both brilliant drones and it's a really, really close call between the both of them. But I'm going to give a point to the SpeedyBee Master 3X on price versus performance because the performance is almost at the Seeker level. It's probably about 15, maybe 20% less. However, you are paying $70 less for the drone, and you're also paying less per lipo than you are for the SpeedyBee. So, than you are for the DeepSpace Seeker35. So, on price versus performance, just is the SpeedyBee Master 3X. The next category then is going to be flight time, and I'm not going to spend too much on this one, but ultimately because it's that much more efficient, because it's a 6S, and because if you're flying it in that way, you will get more flight time out of the DeepSpace Seeker, and you're also using different size batteries. So again, it's not a perfect science. It's never going to be a perfect science. However, flight time wise, the DeepSpace Seeker will fly for longer than the equivalent with the SpeedyBee Master 3X. So that's a point to the DeepSpace Seeker35. Top speed, we clocked the deep space at 111 miles per hour. We haven't done a recent speed test. We still think we can actually eke out a few more miles per hour from it. We've got a prop that could do with being replaced as well, which will just help. Just once you get to those crazy speeds, you need everything working in unison. So 111 is what we've hit, and I think we can probably go a little bit faster. But on the flip side, the SpeedyBee Master 3X hit a top speed of just 92 miles per hour. And I say just 92 miles per hour. That's enough to get you banned if you're driving on the roads of the UK. So it's plenty fast enough for the majority of us. Very topical. And now I will never speed again, officer, with my spotter. Let's move on. Durability. Again, this is going to be a win for the Seeker35, and that's purely because of the fact that the SpeedyBee Master 3X does have that detachable head, which means you can move your 04 Pro from the Master 3X to the B25, and that's a brilliant feature. It's a fantastic feature. It's a wonderful, lovely, amazing feature, but it does mean that you have got a little bit more fragility at the front end. For that reason, and that reason only, durability-wise, the DeepSpace Seeker35 takes this one. Agility and handling, you would think would be a pretty easy win for the Seeker35, considering how you've seen it fly just this weekend. But the SpeedyBee Master flies really, really well as well. So I'm actually going to call this a draw. The lighter weight, the lighter batteries really do bridge that gap between them. So that's a point each. Innovation and features. The DeepSpace Seeker35 has innovated in the way that they've moved the USB to the front of the drone and placed it underneath the camera. They've innovated in a space of size and class of drone that I haven't seen done before, but it's more of an iteration than an innovation. Whereas the SpeedyBee Master 3X is full of innovations and features. We've got the removable head that we've just spoke about, where you can switch it between the SpeedyBee Master 3X and the B25. And I have heard a little rumour that coming down the line, SpeedyBee are releasing more drones that will be compatible with that head. I think you guys might get quite excited. If SpeedyBee just became a bit less anti-consumer, I would be a bit more excited based on what I know is coming down the line. You've also got in there a Bluetooth flight controller, which means that although nowadays we've all got a USB in our phone and we can all use the mobile version of Betaflight on our phones in the field, we don't need to carry laptops like I used to have to back in the day. Having that Bluetooth functionality makes it, again, that just a little bit easier. When it comes to features, there is one thing the DeepSpace does offer out of the factory that the SpeedyBee doesn't, and that's an included GPS. However, on the back of the SpeedyBee, you will see that there is a holder for a GPS, and it is already pre-wired for that GPS as well. So you just need to buy the module, plug it in, and away you go. So all that said, I'm going to give this win to the SpeedyBee Master 3X on innovation and features. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. Noise. Now then, this is an interesting one. So over the beginning of this week, I was chatting to a member of my Discord. It's called Summy. He's a really helpful guy. And he asked me if I come up with a reliable way of measuring noise. And the problem is there isn't really a reliable way unless you're in a lab. But then when you give out lab test numbers, people don't understand them. So we try to give out real world ideas by flying past and doing all that. But Summy's come up with a little bit of a better idea than that. I've got and or flown pretty much every FPV drone ever made, bar maybe 10. And I can tell you which is louder than which, and that's great, that's really amazing, but we're going to have a Karen scale moving forward. So how many Karens out of 10 does these drones make when it comes to noise? The DeepSpace Seeker35 is 9 Karens out of 10. It's loud, it's brash, it screams. A dog walker at the weekend did say, I thought somebody was being attacked, and then I realised you was here. So I thought that's quite good, because otherwise they probably would have called the police to say somebody's being attacked. So I would say 9 Karens out of 10. I haven't had any issues while flying it other than the security the other day. And again, that was after launch control. So that was a full power punch. A slightly quieter drone. Might not have even noticed we was there, to be fair. So I'm going to give it 9 Karens out of 10. The SpeedyBee Master 3X is still loud, but he's 7 Karens out of 10. So that will take the win on this particular round. And I've got absolutely no idea which drone is winning. So let's move on to the final category, weight. Next up then, in this King of Quads episodes, Drone Wars is going to be the weight check. Now, we're going to try and do this in such a way that we get both drones on a relatively even keel when it comes to efficiency. So we're going to pop the SpeedyBee Master, first of all, on the scales, and it comes in at around about 219, 220 grams. The best lipo, in my opinion, for this drone is the GNB 880 4S LIHV, and that takes the drone to 316 grams. Now that means at 316 grams, you're a bit heavier, you're a bit less agile than using one of these lighter 720 LIHV packs, which takes you underneath that 280 or 290 grams. However, with that pack, you're a lot more agile. But you have to make a compromise when it comes to this. So are you going with something that will give you longer flight times, more stability? You're going to be 316 grams, give or take. Or do you want something that's more agile, so you can be under 290 grams, but you're going to get less flight time? And you're always having to make this compromise with this drone. This drone is brilliant, please don't get me wrong, but there's always going to be a little bit of a compromise because it's running 4S, it's 3.5 inch, it's got the taller motors. So all things considered, that is the weight of it. Now we will compare that now to the Seeker35, but I do have a few points to make about that. So the DeepSpace Seeker35 then comes in at 277 grams, so around about 50 grams or so heavier. However, you've got 6S motors, you've got bigger motors, you've got a GPS already built in there. You can see I'm already building the case for this, and somebody left a comment actually on this original edit of this video. This is the re-edit of this video because there was a couple of facts in it that, although didn't affect what I was meaning to say, came across a bit wrong. And one of the comments was, I'd love to hear your opinion rather than just hearing the facts. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give the facts but then base the winner on my opinion. So if you want more of my opinion, then let me know. But I think this is probably the best way, I think. Now, that comes in then with an 1100 mAh at 476. An 1100 mAh will keep us agile, keep us light for the size of the motors, and it will also give us sort of 4.5 to 5 minutes of cruising time as well. We don't have to make that compromise with this as to, do we want a heavier battery for longer flight time, or do we want a lighter battery to stay more agile? Because no matter what, this thing ticks the boxes. So based upon weight, although there is no exact science to it, and although there might be nearly 100 gram difference or over 100 gram difference between the two, the extra motor size and the extra 2 cells make up for what the SpeedyBee wins in weight, and I'm going to give it to the Seeker35. You might think, well, why are you giving it to the Seeker35 if we're doing a weight check and we're seeing what's lightest and what's heaviest? As I say, this is no exact science. This is a lot of my opinion and a little bit of facts. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to this particular combo, one of them's 4S, one of them's 6S. So you've got to compare the fact that you're using bigger motors, you've got an extra 2 cells, and it's that difference, isn't it? Now, when it comes to price versus performance, you can then make a case to say, well, actually, if you're only having to pay for a 4S lipo instead of a 6S lipo, and you're having smaller motors that you need to replace, the price versus performance may be a little bit closer. But these are both 2 3.5 inch amazing drones. But that is the weight, and I'm giving the point to the Seeker35. So with all that said and done, I think we're going to call it a fair score draw. So that leaves us with one winner, and I think this has probably been the closest of the Drone Wars episodes yet. And yet you've got 2 completely different quads. You've got one that's modular, you've got one that's full in your face, you've got one that's 4S, you've got one that's 6S, you've got one that's 3.5 inch, you've got one that's 4 inch, and you've got one that's yellow, you've got one that's orange. you've got literally two complete opposites in so many different ways, and yet the result is so paper thin close. And I think this is what I'm trying to explain with some of these Drone Wars episodes. Everybody wants to know, yes, but what's the best between these two? And the ultimate is, until you start asking several questions, you can't really split a lot of them, and you're not going to be disappointed with the majority of them. However, as I mentioned earlier on, there are going to be some quads that we are going to trash, and we are going to be a little bit brutal on. But as it stands, we've still got loads of good quads to go through, and we've still got people who are asking, well, what about this versus this, and what about this versus that? So that's what we're going to continue to do. But there is the winner on the screen now. Let me know if you think it's a worthy winner. Let me know if you think I've got this one wrong. I did remove an old episode because there was a couple of factual inaccuracies in it, and that was based upon the fact of when I received my version of one of those drones, it was a bit different than what you guys received. So because of that, I accepted that factually it was a little bit inaccurate, so we'll go back and we'll re-record that at some point in the future, but we'll move on for now. I think personally this has been probably the best episode so far because of just how close both of these quads are. These are both brilliant quads. You'll notice the SpeedyBee Master does have the wrong head on it at the moment, but it was just for the sake of filming, because that's an 03 head and an 04 camera. But yeah, it is what it is. I have loved this episode. I hope you guys have too as well. Please do let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for all the support that you've given the channel. Until next time, peace out. YouTube and I have had a chat, and we believe that this is the video that you'll like the most, so watch it and let me know if they're right.